Hey guys, and welcome to the Hobby News. All right, so we've got quite a bit to go through here. I'm sure many of you have seen these on the weekend, but there's a few previews here for the sub-games, so I guess we'll get right into it. We've got Warcry, Underworlds, Kill Team, Necromotor, and Blood Bowl. So that's pretty good. So yeah, we've got this new starter box, I guess, entering into Gur with a couple of new Warbands. And yeah, pretty interesting stuff. These boxes seem to come out pretty regularly, with a whole bunch of new terrain and so on, which seems pretty cool. If you're into Warcry, it feels like that's a pretty fun thing. I'm not quite sure what the price is, depending on your country, but, it does feel pretty good. Like, the whole setting and giving you different environments to play in and so on. It feels pretty good. I'm definitely tempted by this game. I've got a bunch of mates that do play it semi-regularly, so it is something that's definitely intriguing for me because it's now that I've actually started to play some Age of Sigmar. I'll be talking about that stuff on an upcoming video, but I went to a tournament and all that kind of thing, and experienced what it's like to play, I guess, some kind of competitive game of AOS, and it is very involved, as we all know. Those main games, 40k and Age of Sigmar, are very involved games, and these sorts of skirmish games, I feel, are kind of, I don't want to say better, but they definitely fit more into a busy lifestyle or a more demanding lifestyle, and still allows you to be part of the hobby, miniature collecting and painting and gaming and so on. So I feel like, this kind of game is probably, I guess, the future, these sorts of games compared to the more involved ones. For most people anyway, as you get older and you get more demands on your time, it becomes harder and harder to do those big games. So I am definitely tempted by this. But yeah, let's take a look. And certainly at least one of the warbands here is pretty tempting. So yeah, let's take a look. So these guys here. So these are little swamp warband. Now, what are they actually called? I don't actually know. Yeah, Rotmire Crude. Yeah, so this leader is just awesome, isn't it? There's such a lot of character in that model. I really like it. It's got, tons of nice little details. I like the whole stilt thing, but this little frog on the side there is excellent. This has a lot of character going on, right? In fact, all of these models do. They'd make excellent Nurgle cultists for 40k or anything really. There's so much great imagery here for these that, I feel like you can't really go wrong with them. They're so good. Little bits of moss and all the rest of it. There's a lot of really nice details here, and each model seems to be unique and individualistic compared to the next, and they all have a little job that they do. The one with the hook here and so on. Even looks like even some sort of zombie-ish kind of ones in the mix as well. I'm not sure whether these are actually Chaos cultists though. Warcry is mostly Chaos warbands, but I'm not sure how chaosy these ones are, or whether they are in fact Nurgle cultists. It's hard to say. It doesn't really tell you, but I'm sure they're affiliated. At least Nurgle gets a look in every now and again on these boys, right? They're so much fun details. The little bits of vine hanging off them. There's a lot of fun here. The nets, with all of the bones and so on. These are fun. These very well may appear on the channel. If I end up playing some Warcry, then this is the sort of warband that I'd want to do. It gives you a lot of options for colors, and lots of faded colors, and transitions and so on, and all kinds of weird sort of colors you can do on the skin with all these boils and so on. This is definitely the sort of thing that I would do. And, they're choosing good colors. All these like sort of teal, blue greens and so on is the right choice. Even these grass greens are nice. So, that's all good. But yeah, this leader here has caught my eye. So yeah, he might end up getting painted for sure. But yeah, really fun, right? And then you've got the Hashut, I guess, wannabes. These aren't the dwarves, but they're close enough, I guess. Many people that like Chaos Dwarves are a bit salty about the fact that there's no dwarves, but I'm sure that they're coming. It seems a no-brainer. They're doing squats. Of course they're going to do Chaos Dwarves. It feels like they're just like Games Workshop is just really digging into all the past golden oldies that everyone loves and bringing them back, because we do have it is like obviously an expanding hobby and lots of fresh young people in this hobby, but there is an aging audience that are in the older bracket now, including myself, and and many of us, maybe not so much me, but there are some with big career jobs and so on that have the spare cash to invest in their hobby again and that sort of thing, and would love to see these things. And I think that they know that, Games Workshop knows that, and so a lot of those old imagery stuff is starting to work its way into the models. They're bringing back Old World, they're doing all those different things to satisfy the crowd that now is, I guess, at a time where they can actually afford a lot of these miniatures and a lot of this stuff. And so it's interesting to see how Games Workshop is doing this. So I'm very sure that Chaos Dwarves are definitely coming. This is obviously a clue to that effect, but maybe for the next edition of AOS or something like that, or towards the end of this one, who knows. But it'd be fun to see, because I really love Chaos Dwarves. I think they're great. I love dwarves generally, but like Chaos Dwarves were a cool idea, because normally dwarves don't use magic and that sort of thing. They use runes, but then the Chaos Dwarves, they get into the magic, and I liked the lore for it. I liked how they would slowly turn to stone, all that kind of thing. And it was just a fun I guess sort of variation from normal classic dwarven sort of armies. So yeah, really cool. But anyway, we'll see what happens with those. But these are fun, right? We've looked at these before. They're a great little warband. Again, Warcry feels like it fits a really nice I guess blend of I guess that sort of skirmish style gaming, but and accessibility, but also there seems to be a relative amount of depth and variation you can get out of it. You can do multiple warbands, etc. It does feel like there's a fair amount there, even though the game system itself is, I'm led to believe, is relatively simple, but it does feel like there's quite a bit to get into here, which is nice. I think that's cool, especially with all of this terrain. Like each of these boxes that they've brought out seem to have like a relatively good size amount of terrain. Not everything that you want, but certainly something you could build off, using high density foam and foam core. You could make some really nice additions to a lot of this and give yourself a more dynamic board. All those sorts of things are definitely possible, right? All in all, really great. So let's move on to the next, otherwise I'll be here all day, and we'll take a little look at Underworlds. So with Underworlds, I've said this before, I really love the warbands they do for this game. They're probably the best group of models that you can buy in terms of cost, everything, and also just the quality of the sculpts and the individualistic nature of them. There's so many unique sculpts in this range, regardless of their rules and what they can do for you in other game systems like AOS and so on. Just for the model point of view, the hobby point of view, the sculptors that do this range are, they're some of the best you can get. That vampire warband is like, all of those vampires are great. They're a pleasure to paint, and I'm sure all the warbands are. I've now painted quite a few of these warbands. The Nurgle one is amazing. Those Nurgle characters are great. There's so much to say about this Underworlds game. I'm glad they've got it. I'm glad it's something that exists. I like these kind of skirmish games where you're including cards and all that kind of thing, and tokens and all that. It's a great mix of rules, and it's fast, right? So you can play this quickly, and I think that's a real benefit, especially, as I said, for people who don't have a lot of time. This is a really good one to keep yourself in the game, and as I said, with the gaming group that I'm part of, they often play Underworlds, and I can see why. When you're only meeting up maybe for 3 or 4 hours on an evening or something, this is a good one to do, because you can play a few games over the evening, multiple warbands, etc. It's not hard to get into, and as I said, it's one of those few ones where the price point is really good, especially in Australia. The average cost of these boxes for the warbands is like $50-$60, which is unheard of in Australian prices. If you don't know about Australian prices, it's quite crazy. But anyway, let's take a look at what they've got. So basically they've done Witch Hunters, and everyone I think really wants Mordheim to come back. It seems to be the golden oldie favorite, but this looks like a good little hint at some future things for Cities of Sigmar, and obviously those Dawnbringer Crusades, and all the sort of the things that they've been hinting at in terms of them trying to redesign, I guess, the Empire essentially from the old world into the new Age of Sigmar realm, and trying to, update the flavor of that and all the different sculpts and designs and give it a fresh look. And, we can see here that they're certainly not deviating massively from the original idea of Warhammer and the Empire. It's still got all those classic features, but the design is cleaner, the sculpt is nicer, you've got just better details all over, and a lot of character in a lot of these. So I think that's the main thing. These Witch Hunters are great. We saw that with the father and the daughter, the other two, I've got their names now anyway, for Age of Sigmar, that they're really great as well, or for Cursed City. We've seen quite a bit of fresh sculpts that are, I guess Cities of Sigmar sculpts that are moving towards a more modernized version, and I think that's great. These ones are all good. They're especially this little guy here with the crossbow. That's awesome. I like the sort of almost faceless mask, just very sort of I guess. Yeah, foreboding, I suppose. It's got that sort of Halloween vibe going on there. And I think that this type of, it's a really cool idea. And it sort of pushes them away from, that's like definitely got the grimdark kind of aesthetic. Not so much the pomp and the baggy pants and all the rest of it, but that sort of more, I guess, sinister aspect to what this fantasy world has in it and what these humans have to live with. So, yeah, I really like that. It's got some really nice, interesting, in fact, this one here, even got the little curls on the hair there. That's great. I didn't even notice that before. And then the doggos. Everyone loves a good doggo. And, I really enjoy the combination of characters and usually pets or pet class stuff. I'm a big fan of that in games, computer games and so on. So seeing it in Underworlds is a really great thing. You just can't go wrong with that. It's nice. And it gives you something different to paint as well, which is another bonus. You're not just painting the same thing over and over again. So yeah, all in all, a real winner, I think. Really, really cool. Okay, so now we'll move on to where we got, I think this is, Kill Team. Okay, so this was also really interesting. So they're finally expanding on Crude, which has taken a very long time. I was working for the company at the time when Tau first released, and Crude and so on, and it's taken them all that time until now to finally start fleshing it out, which is interesting. Tau has seen quite a few nice new models and so on over the years, and it looks like Crude might actually starting to have a bit of a comeback, at least to begin with Kill Team. But I'm sure that if they're doing Kill Team warbands, then there's more to come for the main game. That this is a good testing ground for a lot of design ideas and a lot of different choices they can make. They can see how people like it, whether they buy them, etc., and then make their decisions based off of that. So at least you'll get a Kill Team, but I'm sure there'll be more. And then we also get something really interesting. We got some Imperial Navy here as well, which is another aesthetic that isn't always looked at when we're looking at Imperial Guard or Astra Militarum. The sort of the wider world of humans that live. We don't often see that. We see the gangers, the hivers in Necromotor. We see, the main Imperial Guard kind of forces. We see Adeptus Mechanicus. We see a lot of that sort of thing. But the Inquisition side, the Navy side, things like that, we don't see as much of that aspect of their design. From world to world differences and so on. So it's nice to see like a take on that. See what they might look like. And so let's get into it. So we've got some really nice, interesting idea. So we're getting a little bit of, I guess, almost steampunk vibes from these sort of armored plating and so on, rounded forms. But it's pretty good. Like it's almost, almost feels like not even Warhammer. It does feel like a kind of, I guess, more, I don't want to use the word generic sci-fi, but like a more pejorative version of a sci-fi aesthetic for these sort of warriors. So, which I think is good because it allows a bit of interpretation. You can do some conversions, different paint schemes, even different game systems. These would be great for agnostic games, and who knows, the sculptors and designers might be taking a few notes from that type of ideas to allow these models to be more homogeneous with other systems, so that you can use them in a lot of different settings. But particularly for 40k, again, this would make a great Imperial Guard regiment. There's a lot of interesting things you could do with this. So it's nice to see some more design choices for humans in the 40k world, because you don't often see a lot of it. It's mostly centered around Cadians, the main couple Cadians and Catachan and so on. You don't really get to see a huge number of them, at least these days. Back in the olden times, we got almost every Guard regiment imaginable they made, back in the old days. But in the current era, they don't often do that in any large scale. So it's nice to see some getting made. So yeah, all in all, really nice. That's cool. And then we got these Crude, and with the Crude, I was always a fan of Crude. I liked them. I think they're a great idea. I think they're very much underutilized in the codex for Tau. I think that there should be a far more viable choice and a far more interesting choice to really mix up. For me, the Tau book should be more like a like a movie that does like a genre switch halfway through. You know how you sometimes get movies that will be one sort of thing. It might be like, you know, some sort of drama to start with, and then suddenly it flips into horror, or it starts out with horror and then flips into comedy, or it, you know, any number of different things, or a thriller that turns into something else. You know, like really turn things on their head and change it up, and something that's unexpected. So with the Tower book, I feel like there's a really good opportunity there to really allow players to play in like very, very different play styles, you know, from a Crude heavy list to a Tower heavy list. That should be like totally unique and different all in the one book. You know, you should be able to do those kind of flips, and that would make the Tower book really interesting and refreshing and a fun way to have. If you were only having one army, that would be really good, because then you could get that sort of horde, you know, combat sort of style, or at least close up sort of fighting style. Then you've got your gun line, your far back sort of high tech, you know, Robotech sort of style, or anime inspired, you know, Tower Force. So there's all that kind of play there that could be, and then you got your combined forces where you've got both interacting on the tabletop. And they've never really sort of dug into that much. They've always kept them more of just this gun line, and I think that's the Tower book, for me anyway, over the years that I've been a part of this hobby and seen it. It always kind of struggles to stay, you know, there. It always comes out, you know, it'll either be too strong and they got to nerf it back, or it just doesn't compete at all, and it ends up being a little bit, you know, not as interesting as other books. But the Crude are there to give you that interest, to give you that secondary play. In fact, you know, they're meant to have many alien races. There's no reason why they can't have more, you know, all sorts of different ones. They did have them originally, but they don't seem to have really, you know, dug into that aspect of Tower culture. And that, I think that's where the future is for Tower. If they're going to make them a truly interesting and, you know, really viable codex that can compete over the length of the edition, I feel like that's where it's at for them, because it's a unique force. Nothing else really is like it in the, you know, in the 40k world, to have all of these sorts of options. And if they're in that book, it would definitely, you know, you get a lot more players playing it for sure. And these are awesome. So anyway, I won't rant on about Tower too long. You can tell I like them. They're always a good idea, I think. You know, yeah, they're sort of taking a bit of a major cue from anime and so on, but you know, it's a fun aesthetic, and you know, to have miniatures in that scale of that type of aesthetic is good, because you know, you can't always play those things. There aren't too many tabletops that actually use anime robots. These days there's a few game systems that do anime robots, but there's not a lot. You know, I can't think of too many that exist. So this gives you the chance to do that, right? So yeah, anyway, pretty cool. So we got the little bowman guy here, which looks pretty good. I like the paler skin tone on this, actually. That's a nice change from the darker greens that they normally do. Yeah, that's good. Just showing some different I guess paint schemes or styles for the Crude. You know, different, I guess, sub-breeds, that sort of thing. And the doggos are always cool. Yeah, all in all, a lot of fun, and I hope they do definitely explore this, because that's it's untapped, you know, sort of potential in terms of design and just hobby wise, right? So yeah, all in all, pretty good. Let's move on to the old Necromotor, and we've got a pretty fun one. So you know, obviously Mad Max inspired. We've got these big bikes, Goliath bikes, and they're great. There's going to be so many good conversion possibilities. I don't think they're going to see much play with Goliaths, although for people that play Necromotor they will. But I think the main thing people are going to be buying these for orc armies. You know, I saw mention of someone in the chat when I was watching the preview. They were talking about World Eater bikers. That's definitely a thing, or Chaos bikers, that sort of thing. There's a lot of good ideas for these Goliath bikes. They're a great concept. So I can see these being used for a lot of armies, you know, in 40k. So yeah, really fun models. I think it's a great idea. I like this one without the tire. I think that's a really interesting choice. I mean, the tire is awesome as well, but it's kind of an interesting one. You could even put some teeth on the top here. You could do a lot of like really cool things. I can just imagine like this all covered in like little goblins and so on, or grots, and you know, having a great time hanging out on these blades at the front. That'd be fun. Yeah, really cool model, and you know, it's just begging for some orc conversions at the very least. So that's great. And then finally, I think we're going to take a little look at Blood Bowl and this Amazon team, which I really like, and I actually really enjoy the comic book style artwork they've done for this. I think that's cool. I guess they've done that for Blood Bowl quite a bit, but you don't often see it for Warhammer content when they're doing these releases, and I kind of like it. Yeah, these these are fun. I like this light teal color. That's awesome choice. If anyone doesn't know, you haven't seen any of my videos, I like blue greens and things like that, and this is definitely a color scheme that's up my alley. And yeah, really fun. I like the ones with the snakes and so on. There's a lot of character in these. They've got that sort of I guess more I guess gym vibe. They've been working out, and I like that. I like the anatomy. I like seeing a little bit of that muscularity there. The abs going on here. It gives you more to paint, more highlight areas, more shading spots. It's definitely a good look for these. It just gives them a more imposing vibe, especially if they're playing Blood Bowl. Yeah, you can see how the painters been able to just get these nice fades of tones going down the thigh and then hitting that nice high point on the knee and then fading it down again and getting another high point there on the foot. It just got some good transitions of anatomy, and that's great. That's what you want for these models, because it makes it more enjoyable to paint. If it was all sort of cylindrical and very, very smooth, not these sort of like nice little transitions, it'd be harder to paint well. You need those breaks. So yeah, the designers did a good job of this to make sure that they had that in place, because it can be a trap you fall into when you're sculpting, to not make nice clear definitions between those muscled forms. So yeah, really, really cool. I like it a lot. And then finally we'll take a look at also I'll say obviously these are going to get used in many other I think Daughters of Cain, definitely a few players will be using these for conversions for sure. They're a nice bunch of models. But the last one we'll look at is their star player or their big monster, and that is this snake, which looks awesome. Like it's just a fun model, right? The face on it looks great. Everything about this is just hilarious. Blood Bowl's just I'm so happy that Blood Bowl is still a thing and everyone still plays it and it's still supported, because we wouldn't have silly models like this, which I'm sure it's a great thing and it's serious and stuff in the game, but it's just a fun model to paint. Like this has got to be, if you're playing Blood Bowl and you're playing Amazons, you're definitely going to paint this, right, with all the bright colors. That's just really cool. So I'm going to leave you on that. I hope you've enjoyed this. Please hit that like button, subscribe button. It really helps me out, and I guess I'll catch you on the next one.